As the rest of mankind emerges slowly from prehistory, the hidden people of Atlantis enjoy an already ancient civilization, rich in wonder and sophistication. Since the beginning of time, the moon goddess, Amu, has ruled over all things, attended by her consort, Sa'at, the sun god. As it is above, so it is below. From her palace on Atlantis, Queen Rhea rules over an island of peace and plenty, where the seasons come and go, yet time seems to stand still. Creon has been her consort for 6 years, and in accordance with custom, his position will be challenged a year from now. Seth, the hero of our tale, is traveling to the palace, where he will join the select band of Queen's companions. Although he doesn't know it, Seth is destined to face ancient mysteries and grave dangers. An adventure whose outcome may well decide the very fate of Atlantis.
Hey comrades, what's up? I'm here to talk about Amazon: The Lost Tales. It's the first game in the Amazon trilogy, and then there's another game after that, so we're going to play them all. Amazon is a cryo game. Cryo game. They make a lot of adventure games from like the 90s, and I think they made some shitty action games too. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly. Their whole shtick, from my understanding, is that they make beautiful games that are not that fun to play because while they excel at maximizing the hardware at the time, like I think this game came out in like 98, and it does look good. It's like playing it is a little bit of a chore, and then getting around without dying constantly. And then in this one, you can't even you can only auto save. There's no way to save your game. I feel like the auto saves thus far, and I've only played for a little bit before I started recording these. That's how I do these now. But thus far, it's not been too bad. Like if I die, I go back a tiny little bit, but then I can just like kind of cruise through whatever's going on to get to the next section. So not the worst thing ever. Okay, so that brings us to the game. So you play as Seth. Seth is one of the queen consorts. So Atlantis is real. There's like an eternal queen. She represents like the moon, I want to say. And then there's like a moon goddess and a sun god. And so the moon goddess, her representation on Earth is like the queen. I can't remember what her name is. Anyway, and she's like immortal somewhat. And so, but she has a consort that she chooses, and then every 6 years that consort can like fight or do some sort of challenge to remain consort, or one of her other companions, like her harem, her male harem, can become her consort. So you're Seth, and you were chosen as a companion, and so you're here because Creon, whose current consort, is about to hit a 6-year time period, and you want to give it to him. So when you fly in, and you get a lot of this backstory as we're flying in, and you fly in this like cool looking barge looking thing, and when you land, you report into the palace, and the guards are like, hey, you need to go to the companions' quarters and talk to Agatha. So you go talk to Agatha, and then you meet like Murjak or something. He's a real asshole. He's like, go get me food, peasant. And you're like, go fuck yourself. And he's like, what? And he wanders off. And then Agatha's like, yeah, give it to him. Fuck that guy. Anyway, you also find out around this time, because Locust bursts in and is like, the queen's been captured and the companions she was out having a walk with are dead. And the companions need to shut up and just stay here and not investigate. And Seth, of course, is like, well, this is an adventure game. I'm going to go fucking investigate. And Agatha's like, be careful. And you're like, cool. So you head out of the town, and you're like talking to people, and then you bump into this fisherman. And he's like, oh, hey, yeah, I found this earring. So you get the earring, and then the guards are like, hey, Creon wants to see you because you're doing the thing you're not supposed to be doing, which is investigating this murder. Or I guess it's not a murder yet, as far as we know. And so you go, and he's like, hey, did you find anything? And you say no. And he's like, all right, well, stop it. You're banished to like the palace, and you can't leave. And you're like, oh, shucks. So you go talk to Agatha, and she's like, I'm really concerned. I don't think Crayon's taking this that seriously. And you're like, yeah, I don't either. I'm going to figure out a way. I'm going to figure out how I can help. And she's like, don't get into too much trouble to put you in jail or kill you. And you're like, yeah. So I go and meet like a slave girl. And she's like, oh, I don't know anything about this shit. And then I run into Locust. And I'm like, yo, bro, I got to get out and investigate, figure out what's going on. He tells you that there were some rebels 100 years ago or something. I don't know. The timelines are kind of extended here, I guess. And they were like total Sun Bros, but not the fun Sun Bros from the Dark Souls series. They were Sun Broses, and they wanted the Moon Queen dead, and they wanted the Sun Bros to be king, and there's never been a king, and it's like, a king? How could there be a king? Was the impression I got. And they want to kill all the barbarians, or at least smash the barbarian cities, because outside the walls of Atlantis, the barbarians, which are just like everybody else, like Rome and stuff, are building civilizations, and like the Sun Bros can't have that shit. That's not acceptable. And so he's like, but I'm a member of a secret organization that is supporting the queen and fighting against the Sun Bros, so you should join us. And he gives you like a medallion, and you go and you finally get to like your first puzzle. And the puzzle is you get some like obscure comment about the sun sets at 8 o'clock, and you need to the moon and the sun or obscure the sky or some bullshit. I'm using a guide. So whatever. Anyway, so we solved the puzzle, and then we put like this amulet inside a lion's mouth, and it opens a secret passage, which allows us to get into a prison where there's like an open window that we just leap out of. And I'm like, this is a shitty prison. Anyway, then we avoid getting killed by a guy who's just wandering around in the street who will throw a dagger at us if he sees us, which I did once. But we throw a flower pot at his head and then walk in to meet Locust. And Locust will chat with us for a minute if you're quick enough to click on him and ask him questions. I was not. So then Majula, the guy from before, storms and he's like, I'm here to kill you. And it's like, oh no, this was all a trick. Locust wanted to kill me too. And they give you ample opportunity to run up the stairs, cut some rope, swing from the rope like Errol Flynn, and kick Majula in the face, and then slowly walk over to the door, open the door, and walk out. And as you shut the door, a knife hits the door. So, and then you have to run as fast as you can, which means you just kind of mosey on back the way you came. And right where the window is, where you like hopped out, there's 2 gates, and you can go in one of the gates because you hear Agatha calling for you. And when you get in there, Agatha's like, shh, and they can't find you. And they're like, all right, well, we'll just go inside the castle or go inside the palace and wait for him. So Agatha's like, oh, I'm so concerned, and like these people, and Creon's being crazy, and I think he joined this group that wants to kill the queen, and I don't know what to do. And you're like, I'll help you, I'll figure it out. And she's like, how are you going to get back in the palace? And you're like, I don't know, but I'll figure it out. Well, you figure it out pretty quick, because there's a ladder conveniently located in this little gardens area you're at. So you just climb up on a wall, and then climb across to the window you came in before. And then when you start to head back, you hear guards on their side of the secret passage. It's like, all right, so as soon as he comes through this door, we kill him. And everyone's like, yeah. And you're like, okay, so I can't go that way. But if you search randomly or use a guide, you'll find this like rat-looking thing, and you put it in this fresco of a cat, and it opens the door. And then there's a guy just like hanging out in this like random room in this secret passage in this house. And he's like, hey, Fred. So we head over to talk to him. So now we have our old friend Ratcatcher, and he's got his like creepy mouse friend. So he's called a Ratcatcher, at least in the guide. I don't remember if he said anything about being a Ratcatcher, to be completely honest. And I would almost be like, I would never suspect him being a Ratcatcher. I mean, he's got like a little rat friend who does like spying stuff on people, and he seems kind of crazy. But he's on our side. Like, he's all about putting the queen back on the throne, and he hates Karen. So I'm a fan of that, a huge fan of that. But he wants me to prove my worth by playing this strange board game. So you got a board, and you have a piece, and you can move 2 spaces. And then he's got 2 ogre pieces, and they can both move 1 space, but they can move diagonal as a space. Well, if I choose to move diagonal, that's technically 2 spaces. And then there's a queen piece, which moves like invisibly, but every now and then will like pop up. Avoiding the ogres is exceedingly easy. Trying to find the queen, on the other hand, is like, I feel like just random. Like, I had to play through this twice, and I was able to find the queen the second time around. I feel like I just kind of like stumbled into her, and I was like, oh, thank goodness I don't have to do this again. It was fine as like a puzzle, but once you do that, he's like, congratulations, it's like Skelter or whatever, Skelly, whatever his rat's name is. Skelly's gonna help you. You just gotta go look. And then he's like, ta-da! You fall through a trapdoor. Out of this room, you gotta go press a star on a wall, then you go pick up which opens a thing in the ceiling, and then you pick up a trident, and then you use the trident as like a ladder of sorts to get up. And when you get up, you're in like this statue or something in like the main palace room. And here you hear Creon talking to some fat priest about how Creon definitely kidnapped the queen, and definitely his plan is to learn the secrets of Atlantis, so that he can be the emperor or take control or something like that. And they're very schemy. And they mention, I wrote it down here. They mention Carbonok as like this temple where they took her that has priests, and it's like somehow related to the secrets of Atlantis or the power of Atlantis or something. And so, all right, so now we got the information, we got to go find Agatha. So we head back down. I closed the roof and put the trident back just in case. And then there's a doorway that leads us to like this other part of the palace. And we have to like sneak by some guards. Sorry. And in one of these rooms, as we walk around, we make like creaky noises. And I guess if we make too many creaky noises, they'll jump on us. But it's pretty easy to just kind of meander about, and then you push like this big shelf full of like antiquities onto and killing one of these guards and distracting the other guard. And then you run up the stairs, and there's a window. So what do you do with windows? You jump out of them. So that's what you do. And I was like, this is so ridiculous. So you jump out of a window, and you're in like this other garden area by like the first garden we went to Agatha, and there she is with some guy. And so you wander up, and the guy like disappears. And according to the guide, the guy's like, oh, I'm going to go guard so that you guys, so that you can have your private conversation. And Agatha's like, oh, thank goodness you got the information. And you tell her about Carbonok and all this stuff. And she's like, we must fly there. You need to go find my brother. He's like a flying guy. And then the guy runs in with a guard, and he's like, aha, I betrayed you. And I was like, whoa, you left? Like, I literally started talking to a guy, talked to her, and then this dude comes running in with a guard. I was like, the fuck? But, yeah, I guess that's what he was doing. So then I take my knife, and I just stab the guard, even though he's got a huge spear, and that kills him. But then Agatha and this other homie, like, kill each other, and Agatha's like, oh, find my brother, show him this bracelet. So I take her bracelet. And she's like, you must save the queen. I wish I could have done more. And then she dies. Sad times. Agatha was my one true friend in this area. Full of fucking backstabbers, like, right? Like, this is like... I know this... the game hasn't been going on that long, but I feel like I've been betrayed, like, 3 times already. Maybe it was just twice. But yeah, I've been betrayed twice. Like, give me a break. So then we gotta, like, climb back into the palace through the prison. So we literally just like walk out of this garden, walk back into the garden we were at before, pick up the same fucking ladder, use it again to climb back up twice, to climb back up into this prison area. This time we can go back through the secret passage by the lion that we took the first time because there's no guards there. And then we sneak out the front door that we came in. All right, so now we're all the way back in like that main foyer of like the fortress, or the palace. There's one more door we haven't tried, so we go in there, and that leads us up an elevator to the top of this tower, and then we go across this bridge to another tower, and there's all the boats, the flying boat things that we came in at the intro sequence. So we get on one of the boats that I guess was the right boat that I chose, and Seth, the main character, like sits down in the chair and is like, I'm sleepy, and closes his eyes and goes to sleep. And I'm like, bruh, like, Creon's got like the whole palace looking for you, man. You're just gonna take a nap up here, like in the middle of the open air. Like, what the hell? And we get woken up by, I can't remember his name, Agatha's brother or something or other. And he's like, you better tell me what I need to hear quick, or I'm gonna throw you off this thing onto the ground. And you give him the bracelet, and he's like, Agatha gave you this? She would never tell anyone about this. So she must have sent you here. And you're like, I'm sorry, your sister's dead. And he's like, yeah, whatever. All right, let's go. And that's what happens. You fly off to Carbonok. Once you get there, you have like an odd argument about like, all right, I'm coming with you. And you're like, no, bro, you got to stay here and guard the boat. And he's like, what? Fuck that. And you're like, no, I seriously need you to stay here and guard it. This is like the only way for us to get the queen out of here. And he's like, all right, I guess if I have to. And you're like, Jesus Christ, man. And then he's like, well, I don't know if I can fight the guards off. And I'm like, I'm not asking you to fight the guards off. And what were you going to do if you came with me? Like, what in the world? You useless piece of shit. Just do what you're told. So we wander through this wooded area, and eventually I find this underground waterway, which I have to unlock by doing like a snake puzzle, which wasn't that hard. Then we do like some swimming action and end up in this other area, and then from here we jump down a hole
Oh wait, do I jump in the hole first? I don't know. It's some sequence of me doing a snake puzzle, swimming, and then I jump down a hole, which leads me, which is like, there's a fire going. I'm like Santa Claus here. I jump down this hole, and fucking, there's just like a priestess who's standing there, and she's like, "What up?" And I'm like, "What up, girl?" And she's like, "You better hide over there." Well, I show her the badge first, to be honest, and she's like, "Oh, your companion. The queen's being held here." So I open up this chest of drawers she tells me to hide in, and there's just like a priestess outfit. And so I put it on, and then Seth uses the most ridiculous, like, woman's voice. It's like, "Oh, hello, gods. Yes, I am a woman." And they're all like, "Cool, cool, sounds good." The fuck? So you pick up a bottle of booze, and I walk around for way too long, just like getting these homies drunk. And getting them drunk doesn't do anything, except if you don't get them drunk when they call out to you, they'll be like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And you walk up and give them booze. They're like, "All right, whatever." And you have to give the same person booze every time you like walk back into their sphere of influence. And I got lost trying to figure out where to go. So I got this. At least one of these guys, I gave him booze like 10 times, trying to like get my head around the map in this place. Because there's a lot of like, you enter like an area, then the guard talks to you, and then you're facing like a different direction. And that took me a minute to kind of figure out like what was going on with that. So, but eventually I find where the queen's being held, and I hear guys talking about the queen, and I see fat priest. He's like, "Aha, we swore that we'd kill all the priestesses if she didn't tell us, and she told us, so we can go back to Creon." And so they leave. And then I pick up like a big log, and I just beat the shit out of one of these guards. Like, I kill another guard. Then I open this door and drag him inside, and the queen is like, "Who are you?" And I show her the badge. I'm like, "I'm one of your companions." And I'm like, "Have we never met?" Like, it seems odd. But whatever. So once we establish that I'm a good guy, I give her priest robes, and I'm like, "Put these on." And then she's like, "Oh, I don't want to." And you're like, "Just do it, dumb bitch." And she's like, "All right, fine." Turn around. So I turn around so she can get disrobed and then robed. And then I'm like, "Hey, you got to take your fucking like crazy mask off." And she's like, "No, if I take my mask off, then no one will know who I am." And you're like, "That's the point." You dumb bitch. So finally she concedes, and I put on the guard armor, and then we like just mosey on out of there. And then she gets into like a weird fight with me about something right in front of another guard. And he's like, "Yeah, dumb bitches, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, amen, brother." We head back out to the forest, and then we mosey on back to the flyer. So once we're at the flyer, we see that some guards have come around and found it. And our homie's just like hiding out in the bushes. And he's like, "Hey, sorry, guy." And I was like, "No, that's cool. I literally don't know why I just left you here. You probably could have just come with me. This was like a silly adventure. Oh well, whatever. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to distract these guards, and you two are going to hide in these bushes. And then when they chase me, you guys are going to get in this thing and take off." And they're like, "No, what about you?" And he's, "I'll figure it out. Fucking, I'm great." So I got like a dopey face and a weird, it's mostly just a dopey face. Yeah, the voice acting in this game, honestly, is not like, "Oh man, I'm feeling it." But it's like, it's good enough. It's passable for like a 90s adventure game on like the PC. So I like look at the guards. They're like, "Hey!" And then I turn around and I run and run and run, and eventually I end up because there's like more guards and pathways, so I got to like work my way around until I finally get to a place where I'm just like, "Uh-oh, I hit a dead end. I'm fucked." And then you hear like this old woman's voice, and she's like, "Close your eyes." And I'm like, "Okay, sure, whatever." So I close my eyes. And then you hear the guards being like, "Where'd he go? I thought he was here." And then they like meander off. She's like, "You may open your eyes now." And you open your eyes, and she's like, "Come see me." And so at this point, I've already done the secret passage thing like twice. So I just click on the fucking wall in front of me, and it's like, "Ta-da!" You meet a woman, and she's like, "Oh, something, bullshit. I'll help you, but you have to help me." And you're like, "Cool, I can help you." She's like, "I need 4 eggs." And then it just like lets you free roam. And I was like, fuck. There's a puzzle behind you if you turn all the way around, and there's like an egg thing. So you put gears on this thing, and then you pull like a lever, and eggs come out, and you have to do it 4 times because she wants 4 eggs. I don't know why you don't just do it once and the 4 eggs come out. Whatever. Then you like give her the eggs, and she's like, "Oh, one more test." And then you do this like snake puzzle where you have to get the snakes to eat the eggs, but they can't like cross over each other. It was pretty straightforward. And then you're like, "All right, cool, I did all your puzzles, you old crone." Oh, goodness. And she's like, there's one more. And then she says like this stuff about a bloody feather, and like this blood hawk or something took something from her and something bullshit. And then I'm like, okay, so there's another puzzle. Nope. I got to go track in this woods to figure out where all this stuff is at. So that's going to be fun. So to help this old crone out, we gotta wander around the woods. At least there's not any guards. I guess they're all gone. They came what they needed. They came and did what they needed to do, and they noped out of the whole situation. So I meander about for a while, trying to figure out what this crazy old woman's poem that she recited to me meant. When I find a bow and arrow, or bow and arrows, on the top of the hill in the area, so I pick that up. And then I wander around some more until I find a rock. Because she said something about water, I thought. I don't remember. But I was like following the river back and forth and eventually found this stone with like a picture of a beast on it. And so then I started just trying to throw my bow and arrow into the water, or to dip it in there so I could get magic water juice or whatever. That led to me finding that was true. Next I start wandering around again looking for this thing I gotta kill with a stupid bow and arrow, and I start hearing noises in the bushes. So Seth, I gotta stop interchanging. So Seth, it's not me, it's Seth. Seth's doing this. So Seth, whatever. So I so I stand there and wait, and I wait, and I wait, and eventually this boar-looking thing like wanders out, and so I quickly try to equip my bow, but by the time I get it equipped, the thing's like already meandered off. So I meander around some more, and it pops up pretty frequently, so you can like kind of plan yourself. So this time, as soon as I enter the screen, I pick up the bow and arrow from my inventory, and I just hold it like right in the middle of the path where I saw the fucking thing like walking through before. And this time I get it! I shoot it right in the heart. And then I meander up to it, and it's got a ring in its nose, so I take that, and then it disappears, because it's a ghost boar, or a spirit boar, or something. Meanwhile, I have like the sponge or bag or whatever it's supposed to be, and I dip that in the blood because she said something about blood, and yep, that worked. So time to go visit the old woman. And once I visit her, I'm like, "Here's your ring." She's like, "Thanks. You can keep the bag of blood." And I'm like, "What am I supposed to do with this?" And she did not respond, but she did tell me some more stuff. She talked a lot about how she is like an eternal, mysterious fae creature of some sort. I added the fae part, but she essentially says like, "Oh, I am not as young as I look," and she looks like a dirty old crone. And then she just talks about how she's been here forever, and that the priestesses do their thing and she does her thing, but they all get along well enough, and that she doesn't mess with them and they don't mess with her, and sometimes they help each other out. So that's all good. And then I try to leave, and she's like, "You look all tired," and I'm like, and Seth is like, "Yeah, bro, I am tired." It's like, here comes our second nap of the game. So I had something about like, I need to know more about like what's going on with this whole thing. And she's like, "The owl will lead you." And you're like, "What owl?" And she's like, "You'll see the owl later." So as soon as I lay down, I see the owl. I'm like, "Oh, there it is." So we like mind meld with the owl, and it flies off to this like circle, like a Stonehenge circle. And fat priest guy is like summoning something. He's like praying to Sahat or something, the sun god, right? Because the sun bros are the bad guys in this game, unfortunately. So then a giant metal head like shoots out of the ground, and it like says some cryptic shit in like a language we can't understand, and then it parrots some of what the guy and his guards are saying, and eventually they're just like, "Hey, let's just take this head back to Creon, he'll figure it out." And the head's like, "Yes, I will come with you." And then we wake up because a priestess shows up, and from talking to the priestess and the old crone, we learned that this head is, it's like super knowledgeable, and it can answer all questions about anything. So that makes it super powerful, I guess. And we learned that this priestess is a bird priestess, which at first I was like, is she going to turn into a bird? That would be awesome. But no, that just means bird priestesses can fly like the airships. And I'm like, me and the priestess are like, where are we going to get an airship from? And the old lady's like, "Oh, it's just sitting there. No one's touching it." And I was like, wait a second. It's the airship I came in? Then what'd the Queen and Hector do? Oh, Hector's the name of Agatha's brother. I couldn't remember what it was, but it came up again here when Seth was like, "Hector, where's Hector?" And I was like, "Oh, Hector, that's right. That was his name." So, yeah, so we chat a little bit more about all of this cryptic shit. And then we get like sent on our way. But before we go, the old lady has some more cryptic shit to say. She's like, "Somewhere in the palace, there's a tree, the tree of some bullshit. And underneath the tree, you will find my treasure. a treasure that was left for me many moons ago. And if you sprinkle this powder on the treasure, then it will guide you. But I only have a little bit of powder, so don't use it too much. Yep. So then we try to leave again, and the priestess is like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to take you. Let's go. And then she's like, wait, you want me to take you to the palace? And I'm like, hell no. I got a homie. I got a homie in a fisherman's cabin outside of town. Take me there. And so she does. And my homie, the fisherman's like, what up, bro? It's been a minute. And like, hey, bro, what's up? I've been taking lots of naps, so I don't know how long this has been. But maybe a day or two, for real? Something like that. And we just jibber jabber a little bit about how the queen never showed up here, and neither did Hector, even though they were supposed to meet me here, and that's disconcerting. And then we meander back up to his cabin, and I'm like, I gotta go take care of some stuff in the palace. I gotta figure out what's going on. I gotta spy on Creon. I gotta save the queen. And then my homie's like, nah, bro, you look tired as shit. You should take a nap. And in my head, I'm like, in game time, I took a nap. Not 20 minutes ago. I guess it was more of like a lucid dream. But my homie's like, or Seth's like, yeah, bro, fist bump. I'm going to take a nap. So then Seth sleeps through the night. Cool. The queen will figure it out. I'm not worried about it. So my homie, the fisherman, wakes me up. It's like, his name's like Akate or something. And he's like, you're like, all right. Oh, excuse me. That yawn is not about this game. I'm actually, as dumb, as silly as the game is, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And as ridiculous as some of these puzzles are, and they are frustrating at times, but I'm like generally enjoying what's happening. It's like silly, but like it's like B-movie schlock kind of silly. It's like, what's he jumping out of a window again? Like this silly boy. Anyway, so that's our third nap of the game. We decide to head back into the palace. So we have our guard uniform still, which is good. And we head on in, but the guards to the actual palace won't let us in because they're a little wiser than the guards just like standing outside like the main passage thingy. So we head into town, and how do you think we get into the palace, comrades? That's right. The ladder again. Oh man, I feel like I just did this. So we go back into the first garden we entered when we met Agatha, and we grab the ladder, we go up, we go back into the prison, and we can't go through the secret passage because we need to find this tree. Who might know where a secret tree is inside the palace? That's right, our homie the rat guy. But his passage is closed. Why is it closed? Just because. So I have to redo the exact same thing I did the first time I was here, which is use the crowbar on a hole in the wall to get the rat thingy, which I put on the cat thingy, which opens his thing. And I go in there and I'm like, hey bro, I'm looking for a tree. And he giggles and is being crazy as usual, like fucking Joker from the Batman or something. Riddle me this. If you want to know about the tree, you must solve this puzzle. And so now I have to do like a mousetrap style puzzle where I have to like click these things. It's like a pinball machine. There's like, I don't know, 10 of these buttons I can press, and they all do different things on like this game board, and a mouse like bounces around. So it took me a few tries to I would like hit the first button, the mouse came. It took me a minute to even figure out how to get the mouse to like enter the pinball machine. But once I did, I had to like go through steps multiple times to be like, all right, what's going on here? And but eventually I got it. It's really not that hard. It's more just like, okay, what does this button do? Why would I need to use that button? Oh, I see why I need to use that button. That makes sense. Okay, let's try that again. And there's one thing where you have to time, because this platform like automatically moves, and if it's like one way, you lose, and it's the other way, you win. And yeah, it was fine. It was fine. It actually wasn't frustrating at all. It was kind of interesting to try to like figure that out. So then the rat man is like, hoo, good job, you solved my puzzle. The tree is under the throne. You must solve the thing for the throne. And then he gives me like this ball, and he's like, use this. I never used it, which I guess was my mistake, because it's supposed to give me a hint on how to like solve the next puzzle, and I had to like look up a YouTube video, to be completely honest. Because someone actually played this full game and recorded it all. Kind of like me, but like a live play. Anywho, so guess what he does next? That's right, he opens his trapdoor again. Well, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So we slide down to like a completely different area, and I head down this corridor, and then I pop right out, and hey, it's Majul. I thought I took care of that guy by flying kicking him in the face, but I guess not. So him and a guard are here, and they give me ample opportunity to pick up a jar, throw it at the guard so he drops his spear, and then I do like a slide dash underneath Majuli, and then I die. So then I try it again, and this time there's a door. I try to go through the door. That was the correct answer. And then you have to pick up a spear and put it as like a lock, like like every action movie ever. So I got to use this brace to make sure they can't open the door and follow me. And I didn't realize, but this part is like timed, because I went to like solve the next puzzle, which is behind the throne. And as I had no clue what I was supposed to do, this is the part where I had to like look it up, because I'm looking at this and I'm like, what am I supposed to do here? There's no hints or anything in this entire room. So eventually I figured it out by looking up a guide, or looking up a picture of what it was supposed to be like when it was completed. Knocked that out, and then I died because I took too long. So then I came back and did it again. And this led to some stairs going down. So then we head down into this catacombs area, follow a path, which leads us to this really obnoxious puzzle, where you have like various shapes, and then you have shapes you have to put those shapes in to complete the shapes using all the shapes you got. And there's 4 of them. And every time you solve one of the shapes, starting with the smallest one, a statue appears, and then you go to that statue and get like the next piece. And it was the first 3, you have to do it 4 times. The first 3 times were a little annoying, but the last time was super annoying. And it's super annoying because you get a square at some point. So it's a bunch of triangles and like triangle looking shapes. And then you get this square, and every time you use a square, you're supposed to use it as a diamond. But, I'm not the smartest guy around here. So I could just not figure out how I was supposed to do this. And it's not obvious once I kind of figured it out. But it was one of those things where it's like, oh, that should have taken me a lot less time than it actually did. I'm kind of dumb. Oh, well. And this leads to a very beautiful part of the game, actually. It opens up this... and then the last puzzle statue, you have to click its tongue, and then it opens a passageway that leads up. And you have this little cinematic walking up the stairs, and then you head outside, and you're in one of these towers that we see that are just dotting the land here at Atlantis. And we find a golden fork, and we take that upstairs to a beautiful tree, and we can look out and see the landscape, which is very well done for a 90s adventure game. And it's playing beautiful world music kind of stuff, and it's man, this is pretty good. I don't know if that's why I enjoy this. It's man, this game is janky, and some of the puzzles are frustrating. And I don't know why everyone's nodding their heads to a beat when they talk, but I don't know. There's a charm. there's just something about this game that I am thoroughly enjoying. But the music's really nice, and then we have to use the fork to dig up another crystal ball. But this time, when we try to head all the way back down past the statue puzzle, we sprinkle some powder automatically on this ball, and then the old lady is "Oh, you want me to solve all your problems?" And I'm like, this automatically happened. I don't know why I'm doing this, to be completely honest. And she's like, "Oh, you must find a way to find the queen before it's too late." And that was it. Oh, man. You worthless old crow. What the fuck? Whatever. So I continue heading down into the catacombs, and we find another puzzle that we need to use the fork for. It's not a match 3, but one of those slidey puzzles you see in a lot of games. And so we solved that, and then we're outside now. We're outside the town. So we successfully escaped after getting this item. I really don't understand what the whole point of any of this was, to be completely honest. I feel I learned nothing from coming here. I got this crystal, so I can put the powder on it. That might be helpful. It was not helpful the first time I did it. But we just meander back to our bro the fisherman. He's like, "What's up, homie?" And you're like, "Hey, yeah, the queen's not around. I don't know what to do." All right, so then the fisherman is like, "Hey, I got a daughter. She can, she's a flying priestess lady. She can fly you out of here. You got to go find her, though. She's with the priestesses and stuff." And so, all right, time to re-enter. Time to re-enter the palace again. So first thing we do is we meander back and solve some more of these fork puzzles. To get back in the secret entrance we use to get out to get to the fisherman, we have to use, there's another fork puzzle with a similar like 3-block or 9-block puzzle. And so we do that, then we head back to like the slot underneath the palace or underneath the throne, and then there's another passageway. We take that passageway. That is that when we take this passageway? Let me think. Yeah, I think that's when we take this passageway. And that gets us out to... Yeah, that's right. That opens up, and then now we're like in that hallway where we got to take the stairs up to like the planetarium and the lion. And so I try to take the secret passage here to get to the prison so I can jump out the window again so that I can go find this priestess in like the town area because the guards would not let me just like mosey on in anymore. But the secret passage won't open. So I'm like, oh, maybe I just got to put this lamb thing in the lion's mouth again. But the lion's mouth's not open. So you guessed it. I got to redo the planetarium puzzle, which isn't hard, right? It's just like I just got to like recall, like I know it was at like a southwesterly direction, so I just kind of like get it kind of lined back up, open that up. It's just that why like I guess the puzzle restarts, which is realistic, but like I'm playing a video game, like the fuck. So then we open the lion's mouth. I can put the thing back in the lion's mouth. I can open this door. Then I got to use the coin from the very beginning of the game again to open, or the earring or whatever, to open up the next door. Then to get into prison. Then to leap out of the window once again. And then we wander around and find a lady under a staircase. And she's like, all the priestesses are in this house by the stairs. And I'm like, okay, so not this house, clearly, even though there's stairs right here, because that would be too ridiculous. And it is, thank goodness. But... So the only other stairs are the stairs leading back down. It's like the plaza where the guards are. So we're not going to go down there. But there's a house right there. And when we enter the house, we meet some priestess who is all about the change of order, with Creon being king and worshipping the sun god versus the moon god. So she's all about that. So you pretend to be like all about that as well, and that you were sent by Creon. And this whole section is like pretending to be a part of Creon's team. And people just kind of like, yeah, all right. Good stuff. Anyway, so she summons Anna, who's the fisherman's daughter, and you talk to her, and she's being a little rebellious. But you're like, Creon wants you, for sex and stuff, so you better come. And she's like, all right, whatever. And then as soon as you walk out the door, she kicks you in the shins and runs off. She's like, suck it, noob. So you follow her to the inn, and inside the inn we meet these two guys I've never before. This one guy who's kind of dumb, who you manipulate because he just kind of believes you. And then the other guy who's like, don't believe that guy. Anyway, so you just keep talking to the kind of dumb guy. And then he essentially will be like, I'm going to watch this guy so you can go get Anna because that's what Creon wants, or Anna. And so then you head up the stairs, and then you hear the two douchebags talking, that Majul guy and like Lacosta or whatever his name is. And they're arguing about something, and Anna's in there, but then you hear some noise from downstairs, and they're going to come like rushing out. So you go hide in this other room and wait for that whole thing to settle. And then when you come back out, dumb guy's there, and he's like, hey, sorry, I had to like knock that guy out because he was trying to set off an alarm or something. And you're like, that's cool, man. He's like, you want my help in there? And you're like, for shizzle. So then we head inside the room, and there's Majul and Lacosta and Anna and a dumb guy. And so then we like talk to dumb guy a bunch of times again, just ignoring the other two guys. So essentially he's like, I'm going to take care of these guys. You go with Anna. And then you just like take Anna and you leave, and you make like a run for it. This time she doesn't kick you in the shins or anything, but you got to sneak back into the palace so that you can get up to the tower to get a flying machine and, BTFO. And yep, that's right. How do we get back in the palace? We go back to the gardens with the ladder. Oh, my friend, the ladder, the most useful item in the game. So we get the ladder, we go back up in the prison, we go back through the secret passage, we go down, we go out the door. And at some point, we're like going to walk out the door to like the main plaza by the palace. And she's like, and then they have a conversation. Seth and Anna, and they're like blah 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 blah. There's guards out there, and then Seth even kind of like, yeah, there's a guard out there, and he goes and he's guarding the other door, and he walks back and forth. So we just got to time it right, and like they talk about like making it. It's like way too much communication. It's not that much, but it's like they spend a lot of time on it. I'm like, oh, this. I'm just gonna go walk out there and see what happens. And I walk out there and I see no guards, and then I move up, I take a right, and I walk in the tower that leads up to the sailboat thing, and I was like, I felt like they really oversold the danger I was going to be in. Oh, goodness. So we take the elevator up, and as soon as we get up, she starts sassing me about something. Like, ooh, there's guards up here. And he's like, so? These guards won't recognize me. These are totally separate set of guards. They have no idea that I'm wandering around here pretending to be a guard. And in my head, I'm like, okay, sure, why not? Whatever. Fuck. Stupid. And she's like, but I'm a woman, and women aren't allowed to fly ships anymore. And I was like, man, they made like drastic cultural changes. Like, not even overnight. Like, I guess overnight. Seth has taken a lot of naps. So, this is a few days later. But he's like, oh, that's a good point. I'm like, you know about all these changes too? You've literally just been napping this whole time, motherfucker. And so she's like, well, you got to find a way to get me over there so I can actually fly us out of there. And you're like, all right. So then you find a bag, and then you put her in the bag. And to be fair, she's not pleased. She's like, I'm not getting in no fucking bag. And you're like, get in the bag, woman. And she's like, yeah, I'll pay you back for this, bitch. And so you put her in the bag and carry her. And then as you're carrying her out, the guard's like, hey, what's in that sack? And I'm like, man, for being stupid, this game is extremely consistent. Like well written in that, like, it's not just like you play games where it's like, I'm going to take this trident and shove it down my pants and walk out the door and no one's going to say shit. But it's like you put a woman, like a woman who is as tall as you, in a bag and are like carrying her over your back. And the guard's like, hey, what's the deal with the fucking bag? And you straight up tell him, oh, it's a concubine for Creon. And the guard's like, nice. And you're like, I'm just going to go over to one of these ships. And he's like, for shizzle, bro. Fist bump. Adios. Oh, man. So then we get to a ship and we just like hop on board and Anna's like, let's go. But she has to, you have to prove that her dad sent you at some point by showing her the crystal that the fisherman gave you, which was the crystal that her mom used to fly ships when she was like a priestess, because Anna doesn't have her own for whatever reason. And she's like, I gotta attune to it. It's gonna take a second. And so there's some dramatic tension. It's like the guy you're stealing the ship from, who's literally just standing right there, is like, hey, you can't do that. I'm gonna go get the guards. And I'm like, bro, I am a guard. I guess there is some consistency, but for the most part, it's pretty good. Anyway, you take off and you explain like where you need to go, and she's like, that sounds familiar, I'm sure I can find it. And then she does. And you're in like an Inuit tribe, like with like igloos and shit. And so you land and you walk up to like a group of dudes who are just standing around, and they say gibberish that you can't understand because it's in a different language. And you're like, yeah, for sure, man. And then he leads you to like their inner temple sanctum inside an igloo, and it shows you like the history of the people. And there was like stuff going on, and then monster stuff going on. It was pretty interesting. And then Anna gets like really curious about it and like touches something, and then the guy like loses his shit, and they like knock you out, and then they take her for like virgin sacrifice or something. Anyway, so you wake up in a prison? Let me think. You wake up in like an igloo prison situation. And so then you kind of solve a couple puzzles to like escape, and then to go get some like puzzle pieces from like the original like temple igloo, and then head to like a random igloo. Essentially, it's like, oh yeah, it's over there, and there's some water in front of it, so it's slightly different than the rest. If you look into too many igloos before you find like the correct igloo, they just throw you back in prison, and you just like meander back out, or you just load the autosave, and try again. But eventually you find it. I couldn't figure out any way that it was like indicating that was the right choice. But when you get in there, you solve another puzzle and it leads to a secret chamber down below. And when you get down there, you see the Eskimos with Anna like chained to a table and like a statue of their god. And you are like, hey, and they look at you, and then you run around because there's two entrances to like this main chamber, and they like circle around each other kind of. So then you run around to the other side and slam the door, and then you like rescue Anna, and she's like, what are we going to do? And you're like, hold up. And you take like the mask off the statue and then go, and you're like, stop, I am your god. And they all bow to you and stop. And all right. And then you come back and Anna's like, oh, look, there's like a weird thing over here. Or you look, you're like, hey, there's like a weird thing in the statue's eye. And she, come look at this. And Anna's like, yeah, I see it too. I see this thing, like a child. And then you look around the room and there's like symbols on the ground and you find the child one. And it gives you like, you get little like movies. It was kind of confusing what it was trying to tell me, to be completely honest. Like, it's another one of these things where it's like, I'm very curious, like, what's going on with all this, but I don't know if I'm going to get answers, because I feel like this is like the third time I've had like some mysterious thing happen, and I still have no answers. Like the old crone, for example, or like the head. It just gives answers. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Okay, so yeah, it just shows like stuff that's like Atlantis stuff, and then at the end of looking at all, there's like 5 or 6 things, little videos we look at, and then when we're done, there's like a golden statue where Anna was laying down, and she's like, holy shit, look at this, and you're like, cool. So you pick it up and you're like, all right, time to go. And she's like, how are we gonna get out of here? And it's like, I'll just tell them to leave. And you walk up, you're like, hey, get out of here. And they're like, okay, and they all leave. And you're like, oh, that was easy. So you and Anna head back up to your ship. Oh, that's what it was. Oh, the final movie gives you like a hint of where you need to go next. And yeah, at some point Anna like implies that like just learning how to fly these things, there's like something in the training where you just like study maps, or you study like symbology or something, and so that when someone explains like where they need to go, you can like envision it in your head, and the envisioning lets your magic like take you there. So there is like an in-lore reason behind why she can just like, hey, I'm looking for like a white bear thing, and she's like, got it, and you're like, cool. Because Seth is skeptical. Again, that's the thing. It's like the story is kind of like, the story's actually not bad. It's very interesting, and like, again, it seems very internally consistent. There's always going to be like some inconsistencies, but generally it's like I'm going along and characters do things and players and people say things, and like the story's like implying things, and then everything is like, yep, that's consistent with everything else that's been said, and I'm like, all right, well, that's good enough. Right? There's no points where I'm like, the fuck, they were just talking about something completely different. Now, does it make sense? Not really, but and is it goofy? You bet your ass it's goofy, but it's like dumb fun. All right, so then as we're heading back, 2 flying ships show up, obviously, because they track the ship. Makes sense to me. And then one of them's like a battleship, and it starts firing at the igloo people for whatever reason. And then Anna's like, hells no. And so she gets in her flying ship without you and flies up and like crashes into the other ship. And I was like, wow, so long, Anna. Thought we were going to hook up. There was like some Sudanari stuff going on there, but oh well, whatever. So now we got to find another flying ship to get out of here. And the way to do that is to trick this bear. So there's like a bear in front of a cave. So you have to like walk around this rock to the bear so the bear notices you, and then run back around the rock and then through the cave before it can catch you. Very unintuitive situation. But we did it. And when we get through, we meet a guy who's got a ship. And you're like, what's up, man? And he's like, oh, who are you? And it's like, I'm the guy who's going to requisition your ship, whether you like it or not. And he's like, I don't want to do it. And you're like, well, tough nuts, you're doing it. And take me to this place. And you describe it to him. He's like, all right, I know where that's at. And you're like, all right, good. So you fly off, and then he sass mouths you. He's like, I don't like this. You're going to get what you deserve. The guards are going to figure this out. And you're like, whatever, motherfucker. So you get to where you need to be, and then you take like a rope down to the ground, and it's like a Mayan, Maori-looking kind of like tropical island thing. And then there's a guy just standing there with like a how you would imagine like Polynesians from like ancient days to be looking, with like the grass skirt kind of situation, and like a headband and like a spear. Meanwhile, this other asshole is like, haha, I blew up the ship, which he did because he's an asshole. So I guess I can't use it. So now that we're stuck on this tropical island with King Hauipua or something like that. Hauipua. Some Polynesian name. We are arguing with Jamar or whatever, the guy who flew us over here, and the king's like, ooh, it's my responsibility as a king to kill traitors. And since both of you claim the other person's a traitor, we will let the crabs decide. And at some point, one of them comments like, hey, how come you speak the same language as us? And he's like, who's to say you don't speak the same language as me? And everything you do around here is like this. It's like, yeah, okay, that's fair. So So what are the crabs? Well, friends. First of all, we walk down to this hut. Seth picks up some rope. And then we play the crab game, and the crabs will determine. So you race crabs, and whatever chooses the winning crab, whoever gets to 3 wins first wins. And that is the fates, the gods have decided that you shall be the winner, and so therefore the victor. And then this king has like some very funny like terminology. He's like, yes, if you, Jamor, lose, you will get sinking turtle or flying turtle, and you, Seth, if you lose, you will get hand of God. And it's like, okay, well, he's going to kill us. That's clear. When those things reference. This crab game was not a puzzle. It was just random bullshit. I think I played it for like 20 fucking minutes. Because it's literally, all right, he's going to count to 3. And when he says 3, you put the crab down at the starting point, and then you just wait for the crab to walk across. 3 screens. Now, if that sounds boring, get ready for it. Because not only is it boring, because the crabs walk very slow, the crabs will randomly turn in different directions, and then there's like spots on the map, the 3 different screens, where there's like traps, and the traps will either send the crabs forward a little bit or back a little bit. And if they get sent back, they tend to start walking backwards, and they will walk like all the way back to the beginning. And sometimes I had a crab who was going up and down on the screen vertically when it's horizontal, and it just did that. Like I was in the lead, and then it just started going up and down, and then the other crab came up, passed me, turned around, came back, and the whole time the crab I chose is just going up and fucking down, up and fucking down. And then finally my crab turned, it started going, but then it got caught on something else, and the other crab got caught on my crab. It was like, what am I watching? So then I started playing Nike on my phone. And I would just like not even pay attention. I just kept playing this game and playing this game and playing this game for like 20 minutes, guys. And then before it was like, Seth, you have won. I was like, oh shit, I won. Like, I tried pressing buttons. I tried doing everything. Fuck this. Like, what in the world? Anyway, so I got hand of God like several times. It wasn't that interesting. It's just like, oh, Seth has died. And then the save point is like back on the ship. So you have to do all that shit again. So that was annoying. This is hands down the worst part of this game, easily. And it wasn't even that bad. It was just like, what is this? Like, who made this decision? Like, this is a terrible decision. But it exists, and there it is. So eventually, after I beat Jamor, he's like, what? Jamar's like, wait. I can help you. There's other things I can do. And the king's like, oh, one of my daughters, I want her to marry this man, but she refuses to. And Jamar's like, oh, I can help with that. And he's like, oh, good. What I need you to do is head down to the ship. And then, so the Jamar starts walking down towards King Huapua's ship, and the king just like pushes him off the cliff, and he falls. And the king's like, oh, Seth, you ever seen a flying turtle? And Seth was like, nope. And he's like, yeah, me neither. Like, no fucking joke. And I was like, yes! This king is awesome. This game, for being as janky and kind of slow-paced and bullshittery with some of these puzzles, and like going back to the rat catcher again and again and again, and using the ladder to sneak in and doing the same fucking puzzle again and again and again to get to the rat catcher so he can like throw me down another trapdoor. All that being said, I'm having a blast. Like, I am really enjoying this game. So then he tells me some more stories about. So the standing god is mad because the standing god statue on this island got knocked over in like a storm or something, and they tried everything to get it back up, and that's why they have to give sacrifices so the standing man doesn't attack them or something, or destroy them or whatever. And yeah, it's all like bullshit. Like, I mean, no, that's gonna fucking happen, but they believe it, so I have to do something about it. So we're like, I'm trying to figure out a way to get the statue to come up, and then who shows up? Hector! Hell yeah! I thought that guy was dead. And here's the best part. Remember, he disappeared with the queen, and I'm like, bro, what's up? I was waiting for you at the fisherman's house. You and the queen never showed up. And he's like, yeah, man, we didn't. And then that's it. We don't talk. I don't. Hey, so where's the queen? Hey, what happened to the queen? Nope, fuck you. We're past that. This queen thing, that's yesterday. That's like 3 days ago news. I've been taking a lot of naps, right? Fuck the queen. Literally never comes up. I'm like, hey, bro, I need to get to this other island so I could like figure shit out, so we can not even like rescue the queen, so we can stop Creon. It's at this point, it's like, fuck her. We need to stop Creon. Yeah, whatever. What queen? Yeah, what queen? Whatever. No one cares. Unimportant. Completely unimportant. So I hop on his ship, and we tie a rope to the ship and to him and to the statue, and we try to lift it up, and I am not strong enough. But guess who is? The king's like, oh, you know who's got a lot of magical powers? My daughter, Naka. And then we go down, and he summons the other twin, Sama, and is like, hey, help this guy. And she's like, Papa, I don't have magical powers. That's the other girl. That's Naka. And I'm like, bro, you literally just said, let's go get Naka. What the fuck, man? And this gag keeps coming up where he's like confusing the daughters. It's hilarious, whatever. And Naka walks out, and these are like some Polynesian babes, and Naka's like, ooh, I need to help you. You and me are very simpatico. God, I can't remember the word she uses. They're like aligned, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm feeling that too. And I'm like, Hector's gonna fuck this girl. Yes. I love this. I love when homies get the girl too. That is the best. It doesn't happen enough in games. I love it. So, and it literally happens. We don't see it. This is not an erotic visual novel, friends. But we go back up, and Hector and Naka are like, so, you know, they're so connected and whatever that they lift the statue up and set it down. And you're like, hey, King, so we did it. Can I go now? And he's like, oh, I don't know if I want you, if, you know, something. And then Hector's like, hey, bro, I'll just take you there. And you're like, no, man, it's going to take weeks to try to figure out where this thing is. I don't know where it's at. And finally, and so the king's like, okay, well, if you leave Hector here as like a hostage, I'll get my other daughter, Sama, who's really good at maps, to take you to this statue. And you're like, oh, I don't want to do that to Hector, man. Hector's my bro. And Hector's like cockeyed over at Naka, and he's like, nah, man, it's cool. Just fucking get out of here. And you're like, no, Hector, I'll never leave you. And Hector's like, dude, just get the fuck out of here. That's no joke what happens. Those aren't the words. I'm inserting my own vernacular into this. But it's like, he's like, nah, bro, it's cool. Just get going. Just get the fuck out of here. Like, what are you doing? And so then the king, then he's like, Sama, take him to like where this other guy saw like the statue in the distance. And she's like, I don't know where the fuck that's at. And then the king is like, oh, that's okay. He made a map. And he hands it over. And it's literally just strings of beads on like 2 reeds. And I'm like, the fuck? And she's like, oh, I can read this exactly. And I'm like, okay. The fuck is this? So she takes me to the island and drops me off and then leaves. Because fuck it, whatever. Yeah, there's another statue there. And then there's a puzzle. And this puzzle's pretty cool, actually. Because it's like you got these 4 colored statues of women. And when you place them, they like, you know, say shit to you like, oh, I love birds, but I hate the moonlight or whatever. It's more cryptic than that, but it's like easy enough to like look and be like, oh, okay. And so you got to put each one of the color women on like a certain spot and then match them with like their food preference and their like time of day, I guess. So it wasn't that hard to figure out because they're pretty straightforward. It's like one of those like math puzzles you did when you're a kid where it's like, oh, Billy sits next to Tiffany and Tiffany is always the first in line and Jane doesn't like going last. So where is Eric? And you're like, he's the third. And you're like, correct. I mean, there's some more complicated than that, right? But that's like the gist of it. So it was interesting. It was one of the better puzzles where you could like, oh, I got to use like real life stuff and like think about it instead of like pressing on random shit and being like, I don't know if this is really what I'm supposed to do. You know, or it's like the sun and the moon and the earth all follow together in orbit. And you're like trying to look at like janky 1997 graphics being like, I think these things match up. I'll just keep moving them back and forth a little by little until it like actually like completes the puzzle, you know? Anyway, so that takes us down a long chamber that literally looks like you're going down like a vagina. I'm not joking. It's like pink goo everywhere and it's tight and it's like circular. And I'm like, okay, I guess we're going in a volcano. Is that what this is supposed to be? And inside we meet another crone. And this crone is not the same. Oh, and meanwhile, before we even, like a couple times before we even get in here, the crone from like the island with the priestesses and the temple, she calls us up. a couple times. Or I guess we call her up by putting like powder on the thing, and she just tells us like cryptic bullshit. Like she's like, "Oh, you better watch for the rising of the third star on the moonlight," and then that's it. And I'm like, "What?" And like the fuck. Like, this is worthless. Why do I keep doing this? Anyway, this woman will not talk to me. She's like spinning her spinning wheel. And so I just head down one of these, like, there's like 6 chambers, and I get killed by Creon, and then I pop back up in the middle, and it's like, the fuck? And I talk to her, and I'm like, hey, what happened? And she's like, oh, you must show me the orb. And so I show her, like, the little orb I got that I've been talking to the other crone with. And this crone's like, oh, you must go face down your fears once more. And I'm like, all right. So then I head back down the tunnel and get killed by Creon again. And then I'm, like, in bubbling water. And it's red, so I'm like, is this blood? Am I dead? What's going on? And then we go outside, and there's like a bubbling pot, and then the old crone's like giggling and laughing, and she pulls the skull out of the pot, and she's like, oh, and then she throws it, and then, bah! I'm in like another room with like a fucking cube. And then, so I press on the cube, and like it changes color, and then I press on it again, and it tells me like the story of the Atlantean people. And the people, they came from here. So they were here on these like island chains. So that's why we speak the same language, right? It makes a lot of sense. And then the cube, like, oh, there was somebody, and then they were, like, moving around, and then they found something that, like, horrified them, and then those people, like, they left, and left, like, they left some warnings, like, these statues, and they made up, like, the whole mythology where it's, like, don't fuck around with this. And then they went to, like, the ice place, and they were, like, doing shit there, and then they're like, we gotta hide and not, like, interact with these barbarians at all. We gotta hide the knowledge. So then they took the knowledge, which is, like, the head, and buried it deep, and to be like done with it because it was causing problems, and then they went somewhere else, and that's where Atlantis came from. And we learned that Hector is now Naka's fuckboy, and he's never coming back to Atlantis. Spoiler alert: no one's ever going back to Atlantis pretty soon, but you'll see why in a minute. Then what else? Oh, and this is the one thing where it's like, I guess we're just not talking about the queen anymore. But you can ask the cube about the queen, and the cube's like, oh, she's fine. She's someplace resting where no one can bother her anymore. Stop asking fucking questions. There's a book my son likes. It's called Have You Seen My Hat? And it's about a bear who walks around and asks a bunch of forest creatures, have you seen my hat? And then there's a rabbit who stole his hat, and he does this whole monologue, which is like, what hat? I don't know anything about a hat. Why would you ask me about a hat? I have nothing about a hat. Please leave. And then the bear's like, okay. And then the bear later on is like, the rabbit had my fucking hat. And it goes back and eats the rabbit. And then a squirrel shows up and is like, hey, have you seen the rabbit? And the bear's like, what rabbit? I don't know anything about a rabbit. Leave me alone. I have nothing to do with any rabbit. And it was like, that's how I felt with this like cube. It's like, what queen? Oh, that fucking queen? She's resting somewhere. Don't worry about it. No more questions. And I was like, okay. I guess we're just done with the queen. Fair enough. So that was kind of funny. What else? We find out that Anna's still alive. And then the first crone was there to guide me, and the second crone was there to change me or prepare me. Sure. And then the cube tells me, like, okay, so my whole deal is, so the head is like this evil darkness, and we can't destroy it, but we can destroy its like cage, and then we can seal that. That's what we learned. And Creon's like kind of possessed by it. He's obsessed with like the knowledge or like the control of it, and it's destroying him, and it's going to destroy all of Atlantis. And there's, the volcano's going to like explode and kill everybody, and then only we can like salvage it or save people. And I'm like, all right, I got to go. And then it's like, here, take this. And it gives me like a crystal. And it's like, you must refine this, and this will give you the power to seal and stop the evil head and Creon. And then I have to like perform some miraculous tasks. So first thing I do is I find this thing on the ground, just random thing on the fucking ground that lets me float up to the top of the chamber that I'm in. And then we hear Hector. I'm like, oh shit, it's Hector. I thought we were never going to see that guy again. And he's like, homie, I'm here to save you. You've been gone for weeks or a week. And I'm like, damn, a whole week? Fuck. Like, I was dead. He's like, where were you? And he's like, I was dead. And he's like, haha, that's real funny, bro. Anyway, they said, send a rope down. We'll get out of here. And you're like, no, you need to stay here. Or it's like, you need to stay and something. And he's like, yeah, that's cool. I'm actually fucking Naka. He doesn't say that directly, but essentially he implies that he's now with Naka and he's not going to leave. But he was going to help me out anyway because he's a true bro. And you're like, no, bro, I'll figure it out. If I need anything, I'll come track you down. And he's like, all right, man, I love you, brother. And then you're like, yeah, brother. And he takes off. And then we go down, and now instead of a cube, there's like this crazy looking pyramid. And so we have to go to the next room to get like a spear staff thingy. And then we come back and put it on the pyramid. And then we take our little stone and like let it roll down past this thing, and it lights on fire and then explodes into the ground. And then we go to the ground, and the thing, like the cube, like or the crystal like dissolves, and now there's a cube, and we pick up the cube, and the cube absorbs into our hand, and now we have like blue hand power. Cool. And then there's a flying ship for us, like a personal flying one. And you know, I couldn't fly this before because I'm just a guy. I was never trained in this, but I guess the blue magic allows me to fly this now, so we do. So we fly it back to the fisherman's hut, and it's like, "What's up, brother?" And he's like, "Oh, hey man, it's been a while. What's going on? What happened to Anna?" And you're like, "Oh, I got some sad news. Anna's dead." And he's like, "No." And I'm like, "I know, man. I was in love with her." And he's like, "I don't know how I feel about that." And then he's like, Creon took his warship and all his soldiers, and they're heading out to fight the barbarians, and he's up above the volcano doing some crazy shit. And you're like, "I'm going to go take care of it. You be safe, brother." And he's like, "Yeah, I will." And so you go get in your thing, and you fly up, and then you invade his like capital ship, which is just like a slightly larger barge that's floating in the sky. And there's Anna, and you're like, "Oh, she's alive! Thank goodness." We knew this already. I mean, I don't think the cube told me this now that I'm thinking about it, because it was like Seth was really surprised, like, "Anna, you're alive!" She's like, "Yes," and she's dressed like Princess Leia when like Jabba the Hutt. She's got like metal like pasties over her chest and like, you know, skimpy bikini kind of thing going on. She's supposed to be a hot babe. So I'm just gonna like imagine in my head what she would actually look like, and not this, you know, 90s 1997 like everyone looks ridiculous. Oh, wait. No, yeah, we do this. All right, so we rescue her, and then Majula comes to like fight us, and we just like step out of the way, and he falls off the ship and dies. Thank goodness, that guy was an asshole. And next we hop on our ship, and we get the fuck out of there. And then the ship turns to like fire rays at us, like it was doing against the Antarctic ship, or the igloo people. But then the volcano starts erupting, and it shoots like, it just blows the shit out of the ship, and then we both like, all of us crash land into like the palace area. At this point, I'm like, "Anna, go back to your dad and be safe, and I will come find you when I'm done with this, but I gotta go alone." And she's like, "I want to be with you." And you're like, "I want to be with you too, my love, but you must stay, you must go." And she's like, "All right, be safe." And you're like, "Yeah." So then we have to, we don't know where Creon's at, so who could we possibly go ask? You guessed correctly, the Rat Man. So to get to the Rat Man, we have to saunter on back over there, redo the planetarium puzzle, redo the lion mouth, go in there. Thank goodness there's no puzzle with the actual Rat Man. He's just like, "I don't got any games for you. I gotta get with the rats and get out of this place before it sinks into the ocean." And I thank goodness. And "Can you help me find Creon?" And he's like, "You must use the whale and the dolphin's eye. That is all I have for you." And I'm like, why do I keep coming back here? What? Thank goodness I remembered that there is a whalebone situation up at the the room with the creaky floors and shit, the library or whatever it's supposed to be. So I meander back up there, and then I find like a stone dolphin's eye inside the whalebone's face. And then the dolphin, I head back down to that, where I got the trident earlier. And I use that, and it opens up a hole into a Minotaur's maze. And I say it's a Minotaur's maze because as you start meandering through this thing trying to find Creon, a Minotaur will just like flame up out of the ground, and if you don't dodge out of the way, it'll like kill you. So it took me a few tries. Thank goodness the save point is like as you're sinking, it's like at the beginning of the maze. So it's like, okay, cool, this is not... And the reloading when you die is like really fast. So it's not like it's like loading a CD or anything, thank goodness. So that's not bad. So then it reloads pretty quick, and eventually I was able to stumble into like the room where Creon's hanging out, and he's got this like crazy laser-looking Gatling gun thingy. And he's like, "I'm gonna charge this thing up and kill you, you asshole." And I'm like, "Oh yeah? Blue hand." And that destroys his gun. And he's like, "Ruh-roh!" And so he like crawls through like a tiny hole in the ground in the back, and I'm like, "All right, I'm gonna follow this guy." So I follow him, and then he's in the room with the floating head, and he's like, "There he is! Kill him now, giant floating head! We must preserve." And the head like turns to me, and I'm like, "Blue hand!" And then the head like breaks apart and falls on the ground. But ruh-roh, a giant ball of like goo and tentacles pops out, almost like a beholder, but it's all black, and like Call of Cthulhu, like Lovecraftian kind of looking thing. And Korean's like, the fuck is that? And I'm like, time to leave. So I crawl the fuck out of there. And then Korean tries to follow me, but he gets eaten up by the goo monster. And I find a crystal on the ground, so I grab it. Well, I use my blue hand on it. Yeah, I use my blue hand on it, and then I get like blue crystal, and then I use the blue crystal on the monster that's just standing there waiting for me to use it on him. And it forces the goo monster into the crystal, which initiates the final cutscene for the game. And what we see is the whole island starts exploding with volcanoes and such, and sinking into the ocean. And then we see our hero Seth standing with his girl Anna, who's changed back out of her like sexy lay outfit into her priestess robes, and you're just standing there watching the whole thing sink. And that's the end of the game. And then you can I don't know exactly what to call this. Because it wasn't even credits. It's like you see it sink, and then you're just in like a room, and it has pictures from like all the different areas of the game, and then it has a picture of like Hector and Anna, like when because sometimes people will like join you to follow you, and they'll like their headshot will be like by your inventory, and so you can like click around and like visit places you've been to before and just like look around. I didn't do it too much. I wasn't that interested in it. I just like was like, I got Anna. I'm gonna go see the fisherman and see if anything happens. When I go with Anna to see the fisherman, and I click on him, it literally just changes night to day. So I guess it's just like, look at it. We did all this cool stuff with this technology at the time, which seems like it was very impressive. Right, it looks pretty good. And then looks pretty impressive. Sorry, I got distracted with like a text I'm getting. Yeah, it looks very impressive. And then that's it. That's the game. So, as I've stated multiple times in this lengthy review, I really enjoyed this. Some of the puzzles are god awful, and if I would say, like me for the most part, go to like, I think I was using strategywiki. No, that wasn't. What was I using? It's like adventuregames.com. Anyway, if you look up Atlantis, if you want to play this game, I loved it. It was fantastic. It was short, sweet. It was really fun. It was hilarious. It was like a great like trashy B movie, like horror film. Where you're just like, oh, this is so terrible, but I love it. I love every second of it. Like, it was so enjoyable to get through. Just like, what is happening? This is so ridiculous. I'd imagine if I didn't have a guide for some of these puzzles, particularly, I'd be like, how about go fuck yourself, game? But there wasn't. I don't feel like there was ever a time where I was frustrated to a point where I was like, what am I doing with myself? Like, some of the puzzles were like the rat puzzle where you have to get the mouse to the spot. That it just took like, okay, what's next? Okay, next, what's next? The crab thing was annoying, but again, it's like I wasn't really engaged with it. I could like be watching something and just clicking on crabs until the game just like beats itself. Like, there's nothing you can do. So while it's like slows down the tempo, it's like it's not really frustrating because I have no control over it. It's not like I'm like, oh, I'm just missing this dodge by 1 second to kill this boss in like a FromSoft game, right? Yeah. So as long as you're using like a guide, I really feel like it's just like a funny story with like funny stuff that happens, and it's like very dramatic, but it's like, you know, the characters all look ridiculous, and they all do this like shaky head thing, which you can see if you're watching the video whenever they talk, and it's just like, what am I watching? And it's just like so cryptic, and it's like, okay, I kind of get it. I think at the end of the day, the overarching story is these people found this like monster that they put, or this head that had the power to like answer all questions, and it gave them the power to create Atlantis. But then, you know, they buried it, and this guy Korean wanted to get it back, and it corrupted him, and that led to like the problems, right? So you solve that problem by recapturing the thing, I guess. So it's the problem's not solved. There's at least 3 more of these games that I have. There might be a 4th one, or there might be like a 5th game that I thought I saw, but I don't have. So I might have to look that up later. But yeah, so it was fun. I really enjoyed it. It's like if you're into like janky old adventure games, like first person kind of things, like the controls are old. Like everything about this is like, and this is like the era I grew up in. Like I got Myst, like I played Myst like when it came out, like within months. And so it's like none of this is like that like annoying for me, because it's like, well, everything works. Like if I want to go somewhere, I just click that direction. And it's like the autosave feature is kind of dumb, but at the same time, I never felt like it was like so far back where I was like, gee, Lord Christ, I have to do all this stuff. Like this game never felt frustrating. that I can really recall. Like, too frustrating that I want to be like, I'm done with this. But yeah, that was fun. Atlantis, The Lost Tales. Catch y'all later.